Welcome to another segment of the Birdcage, but this is going to be a special one because tonight we got to do a little bit of a show because the Falcons are going to be playing tomorrow, but we also are going to be doing an On the Perch segment with a very special guest and an SEC legend on the hardwood tonight, Mr. Phil Cox. He's going to be in the building. But before we get to that, please hit the like and the subscribe button when you get into the show. We definitely want to continue to keep bringing you some great content and keep bringing you these great guests. But help us out, do your part, like, subscribe, just check us out. We definitely appreciate it, family. So we're going to go ahead and get this thing started without further ado. Let's go.
Okay, y'all, this is it.
What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? You already know what it is. You're in the place to be in the Birdcage. Tonight, we have a special guest. We have Mr. Phil Cox, legendary Vanderbilt Commodore, who definitely was a monster back in the day on the hardwood. But before we get to that portion of the interview, we're going to definitely talk a little bit of Falcons football. But before you do that, please hit the like and the subscribe button for us so we can continue to keep bringing you some content. And also, if you're on StreamYard on Facebook, please click the link to StreamYard so we can see who you are, so we can recognize you in the comment section. But before we get to this interview, let me go ahead and start bringing in my guys tonight. Got to bring in my right-hand man, my guy, Killian K. Dugworthy. What's happening? What's happening?
What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Good night. We're gonna have a good night tonight. We're gonna have a great special guest on, Mr. Phil Cox. So we're gonna talk about a lot of things tonight. Good to be in the building tonight. We get a little day early, because of the Falcons playing on Thursday. But good to have everyone in the building tonight. Glad to see everyone that showed up early. These are the day one people that we appreciate and we do it for. Go ahead, Mr.
So the next guy I got to bring in the guy who hooked us up with the interview with Mr. Phil Cox. We got to bring in Coach. We got to bring in Coach Brent Gaylor to the place to be, and he's in with us tonight.
Good evening.
So what's going on,
Good to
Coach?
see y'all. Not much. How are y'all?
We're good, man. We appreciate you hooking us up tonight.
Killian, how you doing, man? Good to see everybody.
Great, man. I'm doing outstanding. I'm great to be in the building. Let's knock this great interview out we're gonna do tonight.
Yes, sir.
Phil Cox is a good man. I'm looking forward to speaking to him. I actually worked for him before, so I firsthand knowledge he's a good man. He'll be a good interview.
So without further ado, we're gonna go ahead and bring Mr. Graybeard. We're gonna have him to come in, and he's gonna help us out with our Atlanta Falcons topics tonight, and then he's gonna step out throughout the interview. So Coach Brant, myself, Killian, you know how we get it. But we got to bring in the old timer, one of the OGs of the show. Glenn, where you at, man? We looking for you.
We looking for
beard, my guy. I guess he stepped away for a second. He's having some slight technical difficulties. So while we're waiting on our boy Glenn to get back, we got Francis Washington in the building. What's going on? What's going on? Thank you for joining us. And yeah, we're definitely excited for tomorrow. We can't see who your Facebook user, but please go ahead and click that StreamYard link so we can actually identify you. We got a few things going, but let's go ahead and talk about this. First thing we're going to talk about tonight is that 9 to 5 crew. We're going to wait for Glenn to get in here, but let's talk about this offense that we got from Desmond Ridder, Bijan Robinson, Kyle Pitts, and then you have Drake London. You know, this 9 to 5 crew. What do you guys think of what we've seen so far in the preseason so far?
Well, what I've seen in the preseason so far is very vanilla, you know, just like ice cream, but it still looks good though, because people like vanilla ice cream. But I feel like once that's week one season starts, then you're gonna see all kind of stuff that Arthur Smith has been working in the laboratory. Man, just he's gonna be dialing it up. He's gonna be he got all kind of elixirs he's gonna put together. He got all kind of stuff, man. I can just see it. I can see his brain just moving, but he gotta keep it vanilla. He don't want to give away anything. And so even this preseason game we're gonna see tomorrow is gonna keep it the same, which is vanilla. Give you a little bit of a taste, but he's gonna take it back. We're gonna wait for week one. Show up, Carolina, be there, be square. So I just feel like Arthur Smith, you're gonna see the best of Arthur Smith this year, and all the things that a lot of people have said, your naysayers are gonna be hushing their mouths this year. That's just my opinion.
Well, I mean, when you talk about everybody hushing their mouths and different things of that sort, let's be real. We got to look at we have to give them that. They showed a little bit of explosion. But we've got to have a lot more discipline at the point of attack. It's just kind of like you being in the kitchen, and you have to have discipline when it comes to certain dishes. You know what I'm saying? From having your seasonings to having your timing right. Just like the person at the bottom of the screen, I got Graybeard coming in and having his timing just right to slide in. And he's got the salt and pepper beard, so he got to bring a little flavor. So what's going on, Graybeard?
Thank you for the compliment. I appreciate it. But anyway,
what's going on, Glenn?
What's going on, Brent? Coach B, how you doing? Killian K-Dub, always a pleasure. And the historian, founder and creator. What's going on? How y'all feeling doing? Looking forward.
I wouldn't be able to do this without y'all. Don't sit there and do that. Throw me under the bus like that, man. Without you guys and the folks that are behind the screen, also with the viewers, man, we definitely couldn't do this without you guys. So thank you. But thank you for the shout out. But man, don't put me on the spot like that, man. I'm nervous.
You be all right. But
I'm camera struck, man. Stop it.
Yeah, I build character. But with the Falcons, man, with tomorrow, man, I do agree with K-Dub, man. It's gonna be very vanilla. He's more of a walkthrough. He's more concerned about they getting quality reps and nobody getting got the two main things that he's worried about. He doesn't care about the scoreboard. He doesn't care about who wins or lose. He just want to get quality reps and get ready for week one. And pretty much what the bottom line is going to be. And we're going to see who's going to be really going to be fighting tomorrow to make that final 53-man roster. Okay, I'm telling you right now, people are really going to compete tomorrow night to show whether or not they want to be on the 53-man roster or be on the practice squad. It's going to be very generic and very vanilla for tomorrow.
So I got to ask Coach Brant, what do you think about this situation with the Falcons right now, and just being in a situation where they've got to clean up these penalties? if we're going to at least be able to compete, because we played in too many close games last year, and we have better talent to pull from this year. What do you think that we can put out here for the Falcons to put out here for the fans?
Well, I know as a coach, what I would be looking for tomorrow night is, can we get lined up? Can we get the play call in? Can we communicate that to everybody else on the field, both sides? And are we communicating within the play? And then, like you said, no penalties. That's what I'm looking for. This is a dress rehearsal. So we want to see execution. We want to see crisp huddle, get in and out, get lined up, make sure we have the communication going between the sideline and the booth to the linebacker and to Desmond Ridder also, and make sure that everybody's where they're supposed to be. You're getting to the point now to where you don't want people thinking. You want them reacting. You want them being just reacting. Just go play.
So with you being a coach and going through walkthroughs, being a former player yourself, such as myself, we get it from that perspective. But from a coaching standpoint, what do you think Arthur Smith is hitting home with these guys to really try to get them to knock the rust off, knock off the brain farts, when I say brain farts, ladies and gentlemen, I'm speaking about the mental mistakes with piss poor penalties, because we didn't have that many penalties last year and we had less talent. So what do you think that Arthur Smith is hammering to these guys and really trying to see while they're making preparations for the Steelers?
Well, typically you have penalties because of two different reasons. One, you're not prepared and you're not where you're supposed to be, and you put yourself in a bad position. You take a wrong angle, you take the wrong first step off the line, in pass set, whatever, or you're jumping off sides, having a false start. Or two, sometimes you just get beat because somebody's better than you, and you reach out and you grab somebody, or you get away from your technique. So I think with us building up our talent pool and being in the system now for going on the third year, and I think execution ought to be there. So, and it all comes from being mentally prepared and being where you're supposed to be and doing what you're supposed to do. And you will hear this tonight from Phil Cox. Do your job. That's when I worked for him. I mean, and I know a lot of people say that. Just do your job. That's what you're looking for.
I mean, it's easy to do a job. It's easier to say that you're going to do a job, but the question is, do you have the discipline to do a job? Because, Brant, we know that most people don't have the discipline to really even to do a job. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it's not just the discipline that people have. You have individuals who really they slack and they make too many mental mistakes. So,
yep.
and I got to bring Killian in on this one. And Killian, how do you feel, with the mental mistakes that people are? How do you think we can chop down on these mental mistakes and put ourselves in a situation to where we can be more explosive on the offensive side of the ball? Now, we're going to get to the defense in a minute, but right now we're talking about the 9-to-5 crew, and then you got the offensive line or whatnot, the lunch pail hard hat construction guys. What do you see from the under construction?
Well, what I see is that we need to just basically pay attention to the details, the small and the little things. I mean, how you line up, going back to Pee Wee football, to the basics. I think we need to go back to the basics right before we start the season, get those guys aligned properly, make sure they're not over exaggerating the whistle or whatever it may be, or defensive linemen trying to get that early push and that early start and that early jump where they're making mistakes and getting called and getting whistles. Because we had entirely too many whistles called on this last previous preseason game. And if I'm feeling that the same way Arthur Smith is feeling, I've gotten in their butt this week, leading up into this next preseason game. Because guess what, guys? There is a 53-man roster that I got to cut a lot of names off of. So who wants to be here? Who wants to be here in Atlanta and thriving and rising up or who wants to be sitting on the couch talking about I wish I should have, could have, would have. So that's what guys are at right now with this situation. So I feel like we better see a better situation, or a lot of these guys that we're thinking going to make the team are going to be on somebody else's team, or going to be at Walmart or UPS working.
What's going on, Jamie? Appreciate you letting us know this is you. No, we're just really talking about the explosion for the Falcons and talking about how they're going to clean up those mental errors and just be able to be more explosive. Because from what we've seen, we can go over the top if we need to. I don't think that, and I'm just going to be honest, man, I really think that with this offense that we're running, I see us being in a situation to where if you look at it, they're flooding the flats with tight ends, or if it's not the flats they're flooding with tight ends, they're being able to put them in the middle of the hash marks. Pretty much when I say in the middle of the hash marks, you're talking about the two looks like chalk lines in the middle of the football field. When I say the hash marks, for those who don't really understand that terminology, if you look at it, Arthur Smith's keeping the tight ends in the middle of the field. If you pay attention, they're running across the middle of the field. They're running most of their routes in the middle, keeping those linebackers and those safeties honest, which opened up the flats for these running backs or even some of your receivers for these screens, or we're running high-low routes on the outside. And that opens up a lot for the running game, and then it also helps out with Desmond Ridder's ability to scramble.
And not only that, it also helped Desmond Ridder get rid of the football more, and he doesn't have to hold on and think about it. I mean, he, like you said, there's just so many options there between the hash mark, especially if we go 2 tight end cut or even 3 tight end cut. I mean, he just got so many options he can go with the ball is, man. It's just ridiculous. But to piggyback a little bit what K-Dub was talking about, man, it just comes down to me, in my personal opinion, trust the technique, man. You've been pretty much been practicing with throughout the entire off season. You've been training for, and now time for you to put it on display, man. Tomorrow night it's going to be your final rehearsal. Do you make the cut or not? That's pretty much what it comes down to. Like Coach B said at the beginning of the broadcast, man, you shouldn't have to think. You should just react. It should just be a secondary reaction to line up on the side of the ball, to be able to attack the ball if you're on the defensive side of the ball. Desmond Ridder should be able to go through the progressions like clockwork, like knowing which reads to rate and whatever, and make whatever adjustment make on the line if he keep cutting, and make those adjustments and make an audible for whatnot. Coaching want to see the technique and fundamental for tomorrow. And that right there will let them know, okay, we're game one ready, or whatever the case may be. Because like last week, we tied where we should have won. Those 13 penalties cost us a win last week. Let's just keep it a buck. So I keep more fundamentally sound football tomorrow night that'll carry us over to week one.
Great. So let's get to the defensive side of the ball, because this thing is getting good, and we got to make, we got, I guess, waiting on us. He's sliding through, but we're going to go ahead and put this out here. So on the defensive side of the ball, we saw the pressure that was being applied. We see that we're not afraid to add and apply pressure. You know what I'm saying? What's going on, Norman Mills? We see you. Let's be honest. When you see a guy that's been 15 years plus, like a Calais Campbell, still running 100 miles an hour to go chase down a quarterback, that is something you don't see that in a lot of vet players. And this man's doing this in the preseason. He's letting you know that he's bought into what we're doing defensively on this side of the ball. David Onyemata, and outside of that, I'm seeing solid play from the linebacking core. Not saying great play, but solid play from the linebacking core. And Killian, you touched on this last week from the last game. These linebackers are scraping and getting downhill, and they're getting downhill in a hurry. We haven't seen this since Foye Oluwakon's been here by himself, leading the team in tackles. What do you think these linebackers are going to do when it comes to being able to be run stoppers and be able to control the perimeter on the flats and make life a little easier for these defensive backs in the backfield?
Well, hopefully, like I said, they stop those holes and making sure that they're keeping their eyes and the ears pinned back and continue to make all the plays they can. Don't even let it get to the back end. You got to play
Mhm.
good from your perspective. You're going to get some players are going to get behind due to assignments or whatever, but basically do your job. You know what I'm saying? Do your job. Like a lot of these coaches we've had that come on to the show. Don't try to do someone else's job when you're playing football. You have to do what you are supposed to do, because as soon as you try to do someone else's job, you're out of position. Then it's a missed assignment and a blown coverage. So
Exactly.
It's been a
And
long time
last but
since
not
we've had
least,
linebackers that can run free and get to the ball. It's been a long time.
Coach, I was gonna let you touch on this last subject. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Forgive me.
No, I just that I know what I don't like seeing as an offensive guy. I never liked seeing linebackers running free. But looking
I
at it from a
did.
defensive eye, I love it. I love it.
yeah, but we
You bring in bad intentions. I like it.
Yes, sir.
Thanks.
So with
Want to
and
be
so with everything talking about these linebackers, now you mentioned something. Now you said these guys getting downhill and putting themselves in a position to make plays. It brings us up to our next topic, Demarcco Hellams. This kid is looking like one of the best steals in the 7th round. I'm gonna let you jump on this one, Coach, because with you being a former wide receiver, you had to plan against guys that not only were ball hawks, but guys that were gonna come up and lay some wood on somebody.
Well, I mean, the kid has instincts. You hear people talk about it. Right now he's got it. I mean, there's certain things that people just get there. He's playing fast. The game's not too fast for him right now. He's not having to think about it. He's just going and playing ball, and that's nice when you get to that point. Like I said, it just is a reaction. You just go do what you need to do, and the kid gets it. He's got great instincts. Let's hope it rubs off on another one that's out there with him. You know.
coming.
But here's the thing, though.
I'm just saying, let's hope. But when you start getting Bates and you get Hellams and people start going together, when you're practicing with people who get it and they do it and you see it and you start mirroring them, hey, let's bring it together. Let's hope it rubs off on a couple of them.
I agree. I think Hellams is a guy that we got in the 7th round. And the last time we've seen, and this is just me, it's been plenty of 7th rounders, but I got to use this gentleman as an example. Came out of HBCU, Mr. Shannon Sharpe, better known as Uncle Shay, was a 7th round pick for the Denver Broncos back in the day. And he was a guy as what they call a tweener. I would consider Demarcco Hellams a tweener because he's in between being able to play the slot corner as well as being able to be a free safety and a strong safety. He plays multiple positions in the secondary, but he's a master of all. So if you remember, Shannon came into the league, he's able to play receiver, but he wasn't fast enough to continue to stay as a receiver. But then you look at that he was able to transition to being a tight end. He was a tweener. Wasn't a big guy because, unfortunately, my godfather, Clarence K, was, he ended up getting hurt. But he was the one that was holding down that starting spot for the Denver Broncos, and Orson Mobley was sharing time with him, and they were keeping Shannon on the bench. Orson got banged up and injured. Clarence, my godfather, got injured, and Shannon took over, and he never looked back. So if you look at it, you find gems in the 7th round. You have steals like this, and this came out 2 years in a row with tackle secondary. So when you bring a guy like that into a system, that's already defensive heavy with Jerry Gray, and you have Ryan Nielsen that's in attack mode, he comes from an attack style defense with Nick Saban. So this caters to this kid's playing style.
Yeah.
Glenn?
Yeah, I agree, man. I mean, anybody who watched the SEC and watched Alabama know who Hellum is, because he laid out plenty of players in that conference. I'm here to tell you that. But like Coach K, man, you can't coach it, and that man instantly goes to the ball wherever it is. He's not afraid. And the moment,
Right.
I mean, he's like a rocket. He just attacked the ball, and I love it. I love the fact that he communicates on the back end. love the fact that he's a ball hawk. He go for the ball. He doesn't make too many mistakes here and there. I mean, even though he still is a rookie, and I still expect him to make mistakes, you just don't feel like that. I think he's being coached up very well by Gray, who I think was still in the off peak, and I don't care what nobody else say. But I just think Hellams, man, he's just gonna be so great for her, and whatever case may be. When the last time we ever had a dominant secondary? Well, can become a dominant secondary with what we got. And I agree with one of the commenting there, man. There's gonna be a lot of good players. They're gonna get their roster tomorrow. That's gonna make other teams here to take.
Well, Ryan, you'll know that you'll echo this as a safety, and a lot of that is Hellams is having the pressure taken off him because our corners are getting up in people's face finally, and and we're getting jams off the line from our down linemen too. They're not letting these tight ends and backs and whatnot get a free release. You have to hit somebody and make them uncomfortable, And before it was just kind of Olay, go run, and then we were backpedaling. You can't play soft. You got to be physical, and it all ties together.
Well, getting to the physical part, Glenn, we gotta let you go because we got Phil Cox waiting to jump in. We appreciate you coming on with the Dirty Birds topics. So what we're getting ready to do now, we're getting ready to bring him in. So Glenn, we definitely gonna see you tomorrow after the game, buddy. So definitely looking forward to your analysis.
Yeah, tomorrow after party.
At the party
Absolutely.
tomorrow. So
absolutely,
we appreciate our resident guy Graybeard for coming through. So now we got to bring in one of the SEC's best sharpshooters before a three-point line was established, and he was literally a very, very good guard in the SEC. We're gonna bring in the legendary Mr. Phil Cox. What's going on, Mr. Cox?
Hey guys.
What's going on, Phil?
Hey, thanks for having me on.
Wait a minute, we got to make him feel at home. Hold up, coach. We got to make him feel at home. Now, we got our stadium up for the Falcons and whatnot, but we got to make him feel at home. So I'm going to bring it back for you. So I put up a poster in the back with you back in your playing days at Vanderbilt and when you were Mr. Kentucky basketball back in 81, and you with the legendary CM Newton right there. So we had to put that up for the folks to see.
Oh, yeah, hey, thank you. It looks great. But like I said, guys, thank you for having me on. It's really, truly a pleasure to be here.
Most definitely. We definitely appreciate you for taking time out of your business to come up here with us. And we, shout out to all the educators that we have, because we actually have an educator that's on our staff, the first lady of the bench, Miss Brianne Allen. So appreciate it, Bree. You doing your planning. That's pretty much our censorship security guard right there. So if we get out of line, she'll let us know that we said something wrong. So, but she also chases after the kids too. So shout out to all the educators that are paying attention to us, because your job is important. You guys mold the future, and Mr. Cox is in that business right now. So let's get to it, Mr. Cox.
Go ahead.
So know where you're from. They like to know where you're from, what's unique about the town that you come from, and also what got you into basketball, and how was your high school experience becoming Mr. Kentucky basketball in '81?
Well, and again, thank you guys for having me on. I grew up in a small town in Harlan, Kentucky, southeast Kentucky, a small coal mining town, very rural area. But as I said, we were talking earlier, great experience growing up. Just loved my childhood. And for me, it was all social. Everything was associated around coal mining. Families were associated. Their parents were working in some capacity as it related to the coal mining environment. But for me, it was just a great experience being able to go through elementary school to junior high to high school. The thing that motivated me, I just wanted to go to college. We did not have the resources or the finances to get there. And the one thing for me was to be able to play sports. And I was hoping that would be my way to be able to go to college and get a degree, or at least continue my athletic career. But just growing up in a Southeast Kentucky small town, it was great. From junior high to high school, I was blessed with a couple of really, really good coaches. Then I was blessed with awesome college coach. But those, as you mentioned, educators, I had a couple that made that impact on my life. I know Brant is a former educator, and he can probably vouch for that, his sister as well. But you mentioned something earlier about how how educators and how coaches, particularly coaches, can have an impact on a student athlete's life. And again, I was very blessed growing up in a very, very good area, but a small area. And again, it was just a great childhood.
So Phil, I got to jump in on something. And I don't know if everybody is quite as familiar with Kentucky high school basketball as you might be, and I've been exposed to myself because I spent time in Kentucky. When you say Mr. Basketball in the state of Kentucky, there's one. I mean, it's in the way that they did that, and even their Sweet 16. There's no classifications in Kentucky, and when you play basketball, when you make it to the state championship. When you go to the Sweet 16, there's no 7A, 6A, 5A. Everybody plays everybody. And I mean, for him to do it, for you to do what you did coming out of Kaywood High School. A lot of people don't even know where Kaywood High School is. It's a dot on the map. I'm telling it like it is. That was a huge accomplishment. So talk about your competition just within the county and the surrounding counties that you played against and some of the people that you played against.
Well, we had spoken earlier about some of the players back in the day, some really, really good players, particularly in the 13th region. There were 16 regions you mentioned in Kentucky, and then the top 16, from your region go on to the state tournament. So that's it. There was no A, B, C, D, none of that stuff. But there was a lot of players. It's just getting that recognition. There's a lot of good athletes that play multiple sports. And it's just, I was blessed to have the opportunity. A friend of mine, my family had went to college with Coach C.M. Newton and had reached out to him. But it was just being able to get that in that rural of an area. It's hard to get out. There's no news channels. There's no, this ESPN. There's, it is what it is. But there were some very, very good athletes, and I look back at my time, even at Vandy, you're talking about names and people that were very good. And from Dominique Wilkins at Georgia, my freshman year, from Dale Ellis, from Charles Barkley at Auburn, Chuck Person at Auburn, Kentucky had Sam Bowie, Melvin Turpin, Derek Cord, Charles Hurd at Kentucky. They were just loaded with the two twin towers, and I go back to Jerry Carter, I think it was LSU, Jeff Malone at Mississippi State, Sean Toohey and John Stroud at Ole Miss, and then the list just goes on. It was very competitive, but just to be a Kentucky boy, to be able to go even your freshman year and go out in the huddle, then you got Dominique on the other side. That was incredible. But just I look at my high school career and all the things, I just feel very blessed to have that opportunity.
Okay, Kelly, what you got for him?
Well, I mean, Mr. Phil Cox, I'm just glad to have you in the BirdCage, man. SEC. I'm I'm a big fan of the SEC. So just talk about, going through and doing the research on you. I just want to know, some of our listeners and subscribers would probably want to know, winning Mr. Kentucky basketball. I mean, that was a huge accomplishment, but then getting spurned by the university and not getting an offer to come there. I mean, how was that? I mean, explain how that was, and you went to Vanderbilt, that chip on your shoulder. Kind of explain that.
Well, at the time, I'll be honest, it wasn't a great feeling. If you grow up and Brand had said something about the 16 regions. When you grow up in Kentucky, you want to play for the University of Kentucky. That's just the way it is. I'll make no bones about it. I wanted to go to Kentucky. They had signed a guy by the name of Mountain Ballinger, and again from Indiana, and again they had plenty of guards, and so I was not on their list to be recruited. But that being said, the good Lord has a way of working things out. I would not change anything, knowing what I know now. Playing for Newton, who coached at Alabama, who played for Adolph Rupp. There's at least a Kentucky connection there, but it hurt a little bit. I'll be honest with you. I was a top player in the state of Kentucky. And I had played against some of the kids that they had signed, and I felt good about how I competed against them. But again, when you're from a small town, it's hard to get that recognition or get people to look at you. I had a lot of small offers, a lot from the OVC schools and other small schools. But again, Tennessee, even looked at Tennessee. I think Coach DeVoe had told me if I'd made the traveling squad, he'd look at give me a full scholarship there. So, I looked at Kentucky and Tennessee, but in the end, Vandy was the only SEC school that gave me the opportunity. But back to your comment and your question there, obviously you dream about Kentucky. I still follow Kentucky. My mother had been passed away about 20 years, and even my daughter to this day, she likes Vandy, but everybody's Kentucky fans. And that's just the way it is in Kentucky. And I still root for Kentucky, pour for Kentucky, with the exception when they're playing Vanderbilt. I can't do that. But Joe Hall was the coach at the time. And again, I understand things, and you recruit kids that you think fit your program or where they can help you be successful. Again, I'm very thankful to see him Newton. I know he passed away a few years ago, but he was very good to me. And for old country boy to go from Harlan, Kentucky to Nashville, Tennessee, I feel good about, and I would not hesitate again to give me a quality education, to be where I'm at right now, to be able to give back a little bit more. I talked to Ryan, we talked about giving back, and I feel right now, been in public education for 32 years, and I still enjoy going to work. I love going to work. I love being around kids, but that set the foundation for me. Not going to Kentucky was probably a blessing for me, even though I till this day, you just dream about doing it. That is the one thing you want to do as an athlete in Kentucky. And but also know it's a life lesson. Things don't always go your way. Same thing in education, same thing with my staff and my kids. You have to pick yourself up, do the best you can. And as I was talking with Ryan earlier, it's just about having that sort of an attitude. And that's what Coach Newton taught me. You're going to have challenges and obstacles, whether you play, and all of you guys have played sports, and it doesn't go your way all the time. The same way in education, it doesn't. But what you have to do is go back and make decisions and do things that help kids and help your staff and help your community. And I enjoy doing that. But Coach Newton laid the groundwork for me. And I said this earlier too. We were talking, and Coach Newton, CM Newton, was a true gentleman. He was one of those. If you go back to look at his career at Alabama, Vanderbilt, as athletic director of Kentucky, phenomenal individual, treated people with kindness, with respect, and what I call a true gentleman. And those are things I go back in my job every day, trying to be a positive person, trying to be a positive role model, and trying to do what Coach Newton used to say. Cox, he'd get on me pretty good. I learned back in coaching back in the day, coaches would get on you because they know you could take it or not take it. I came out and I told this story before, so I apologize for bird walking a little bit, but I came out and I was an offensive player. And I came out at practice one day and I had a T-shirt on. It says defense wins games and offense sells tickets. So I was warming up, and I can't repeat the words. I'd probably get dinged on. Told me to go back to the dressing room, and he said, take it off. And he said, Cox, you haven't played a lick of defense in your life. And so, look at some of those and how to treat people. And I'm just very appreciative. I can't say that enough. Even though I dreamed of going to Kentucky, and I think it would have been a great opportunity, but I look back and it was truly a blessing to get the education that I received and to play with the legendary CM Newton, who taught me so many other things until this day that are staying with me each and every day.
So now we've talked about the connection, and a lot of folks, if you don't know who Adolph Rupp is, if you've ever seen the movie Glory Road, he was the opposing coach that got beat. They took the loss in the national championship to Texas Western Mighty Miners. And what's funny about that is, just a little short story. So we had legendary HBCU track coach George Williams on the show, who's a CIAA legend, who literally was Steph Curry before Steph Curry came out with being able to shoot the rock. So shooters, like you say, shooters of a feather flock together. There was a guy that played on that Texas Western team that came out of North Carolina A&T by the name of Neville Shedd, who was a good friend, who was a good friend of his that he competed with. He was on that team that knocked off Adolph Rupp. And, Neville Shedd eventually played for the Celtics and had a great career. But that team forced Kentucky to integrate back in the day. You talk about some of the talent that's come through Kentucky since then. And, Adolph Rupp is pretty much a legendary figure in the SEC basketball wise, the same way that Bear Bryant is who actually coached at Kentucky at the same time while your coach CM Newton was playing there. And it's funny to think about it that they gave Adolph Rupp a Cadillac. Now, everybody knows Kentucky has been suspect in football for years. And they gave Bear Bryant a wristwatch. And it pissed him off where he left to go to Texas A&M before he went to Alabama and became a terror. Do you think Kentucky probably would have ended up, if they would have given Coach Bryant a raise and a Cadillac instead of just a wristwatch and treated him the same way they treated Coach Rupp the same way, do you think Kentucky would have been a powerhouse in football as well?
Hey, I have no doubt that, they would have been a powerhouse if he would have stayed. But if you look back, every school has its identity. And Kentucky developed their identity back in no different than UT or University of Tennessee. Regardless of what happens, Tennessee's a football, Kentucky's, I get all that, but that is a one heck of a story. And Coach Newton, and when I go back and I think of my time with Coach Newton, he referenced Adolph Rupp a lot. And we used to have to keep a notebook in practice, and we had to take notes. I'm like, what the heck's this about? I used to play in high school, but I'm having to take notes and during practice. And he was doing things just like having another class, but he would quote Adolph Rupp. And I still have my notebook somewhere in my garage, but wow. The quotes from different individuals that Newton came in contact with, and Rupp was one guy they quoted a lot. But again, Kentucky is still this day. I know they're better in football, but they're still a basketball school and still will continue to do so.
Well, CM Newton was as big an influence off the court as he was. I know, being around you personally, how much you reference him and what he taught you about life in general. Mm-hmm. And I know you live by it daily. So,
well, Newton, great guy, Brant. I look back, he'd get on you. My first practices, they set trash cans up at Memorial Coliseum on each of the corners. I said,
throw up in.
What are the trash cans for? And I won't repeat the words he said, but he said, you're getting ready to find out, son. And he said a few other words, and come find out the guys that hadn't been working all summer, they're puking in the trash can. Never asked that question again. And then the other thing that stood out to me, a freshman, you go from playing 1,000 people, whatever, you got over 15,000 every home game. You have multiple coaches in college. In high school, you may have one or two. And he'd go sit on the sideline up in the stands during practice. He'd smoke his pipe. He smoked a pipe back then. So he'd come out on the floor. I recall I made a bad pass. He comes out of the seat, stops practice, and he looked at that. And it was one of those that I call the rhetorical question that you never answer. He said, Cox, what the hell? What was that? And you're not supposed to answer. I learned my lesson. Don't answer the question. He said, who the hell from Harlan County? I remember him saying, does anyone know where Harlan County's at? Who the hell taught you to pass the ball to Harlan County? And turns around, everybody's laughing. I just put my head down. He went back in the bleachers, smoked his pipe. And, and that was the kind of person he was. He was a great guy. And, and I'm sitting there thinking, all the things that went wrong in practice, the one time I threw that ball away, he was all over me. But it made me a better player and a better person. And the thing I looked at was the little things. The little things were what made the difference in these good athletes. You look at the history, and I go back. I think I was a freshman at Vanderbilt. Jordan was a freshman. Michael Jordan was a freshman at North Carolina, and Jordan won the NCAA championship, I think, with that group and made that shot. That same summer, we went to Europe for a couple of weeks on the United States national team, and Coach Newton was the coach, but Jordan was there. But you're talking about someone, and we had talked about trash talking, which I would never trash talk him back in the day. Him or Barkley. But Jordan, I recall when we were practicing, it was the little things for him. It was just he was a hard worker, but he wasn't the Michael Jordan we have these days. But he was the Michael Jordan who had won the NCAA championship, and no doubt one of the quickest, most talented players I've ever been around. And obviously his career, what he's accomplished. But the little things that I picked up, and that's what I try to do in my job. It's the little things as you deal with kids. It's the little things in the culture in your building. Like I look at sports, like being on a team. I look at my building where I'm a principal at. It's a culture of your team. Our team is our building. and we have to have a positive learning environment for kids and a positive work environment for our staff. And that's what I end up in. And you take those things and you kind of switch them, and there's a lot of things in sports can relate to what we do in life in our positions that we're in.
Mm-hmm.
So now you spoke on the Olympics and you talked about Michael Jordan, and you were in the golden era of college basketball. So you look at you name some of these legends. Now, when you were over during your Olympic experience or whatnot, the trial experience that you had to go up against. Now, most folks don't know this, but Bobby Knight was good friends with CM Newton. That was one of his best friends.
Yes,
and
sir.
everybody knows Bobby was nuts. Everybody knows that. But he was a very good coach. With everything that was going on. Now, you mentioned Michael Jordan wasn't the Jordan that we know. But from stories that I've heard from you, a few other individuals that I've talked to, they said Jordan wasn't the best one in the gym. There was a man by the name of the round mound to rebound that was the best player in the gym, Charles Barkley, at that time. So was Barkley very, and this is just a question I got for you about it. So Barkley talks trash to everybody still. How bad was it with Coach Knight in that trial? Because no one could do anything for him. And you got to remember, Pat Ewing had good knees at that time, and he was able to jump above the rim. And Barkley was dominating everybody from what we heard. So what was that experience like watching Barkley dominate and surprisingly Bobby Knight cut him?
Well, I will say this. I think you look at like Dominique, Barkley, or Jordan back in the day, in their college careers. Charles Barkley was probably one of the best. He was very competitive, but I think he would trash talk himself. He was just great. And I remember I told the story before. We were playing at Auburn, playing a 2-3 zone. I was at the top of the key, and I could jump pretty good back in the day. But I went up, and I thought I got it clean. They threw a lob. I thought, well, I'm weak side in the back side there. I thought I go back and get it. I got a hand on it. And that's probably the one time I really got dunked on. I think he dunked the ball, dunked me with it, poked me in the eye, called a foul on me. And that's I got upset at the official. I'm like, hell, he's the one that jumped on me and dunked the ball on me. So I couldn't see. And I get over there, I'm sitting on the bench, and he's over there laughing at me.
He made a
Barkley. And then I went out and tried for the Olympic team, didn't make it, but I spent a week at Colorado Springs out there. And John Thompson, the original John Thompson, used to coach Patrick Ewing. He was my coach for a week, and I was on Jordan's team for a week out there. And again, I was a role player, I'll say that. But it was a great experience. And Jordan was trash talking, to forget who he's trash talking. But he said, Cox, throw the ball up. In the international rules at the time, you couldn't basically catch the ball and just dunk it. You had to come down and it couldn't be above the cylinder. And Jordan was going back and forth, and he said, Cox, throw the ball up. I threw a lob up. He slammed it, dunked it on him. They called it no good. And Thompson's like, Coach Thompson said, what are you doing, Cox? I said, well, he told me to. And he never got the word. It was all good. But Barkley, in my career, was probably the biggest trash talker. I mean, I watch him on TV, and he's entertaining, but he was that way back when he was at Auburn. He had a different look. He was maybe a little heavier back then, but his athleticism, how he could get up at his size, he's not a 6'9" or 6'10", but he's solid. But he could get up, and he dunked the ball so hard, and he played back in my day. Chuck Person, the rifleman, was on the Auburn team, and he could shoot it dead in the corner. I mean, he was a great shot. But yet he would dunk that ball. He dunked it where the ball hit the floor, bounced up into the stands at Mo McCarl. I was like, I'm on the other team. I was like, good gosh. I mean, and then you get your teammates who get dunked on, you say something to them, but he was in his own right, probably one of the best players I've played against, along with Jordan.
Phil, do you know Donnie Butcher, who coached at Cumberland College for years?
Yes, I know who you're talking about. Yes, sir.
Yeah, well, he was Barkley's roommate, at Auburn. And he said that Barkley was so athletic that the Chicago Bears actually offered him $1 million to go out and be a tight end. He turned them down. He didn't even play football, And Coach Butcher, played basketball too. I don't know how much he got to play, but he was the coach for several years at University of Cumberland. And but he told me that story a long time ago.
Yeah, and It was amazing, Brant. For someone about 6'7", whatever his size was, he wasn't like the guy like Will Perdue that I played with at Vanderbilt that's 6'11", 7 feet. Barkley was much shorter than that. But though his ability to just catch that ball and just go straight up was phenomenal. And he would do it with people around him. He didn't care. And anyone that was near the rim, he's one of those, you don't put your hand there. I mean, he would hurt someone. I call it beast mode. He was and
I'm not.
So, Killian, what you got for him? Because, see, you, like I said, I know I'm well-rounded with that, but you and I have talked about it, and you got to see him in his hate day. Jesus.
Talk about, it was a handful. I mean, like I say, he had a great NBA career also, but in college, he just being able to do it at 6'8" and being, because when you look at him, he looks more like a football player. But being able to get up and get those rebounds and being so athletic, like Mr. Phil Cox was saying, but he was a coach. That's one of my questions. I was going to say, coaching, getting a head coaching job at such a young age. Talk to our listeners and subscribers about that experience. I mean, I understand you enjoying administrative work now, but just talk about that experience of getting a head coaching job when you did, and how was that doing that in that time?
You think when you're young, no different than getting in a leadership position, you think you got the answers. I look back and I probably didn't. I thought I was prepared, but I look back, probably one of the best experiences at such a young age. But coaching at that level comes down to your ability to be able to recruit. I relied on my coaching at that point on what I had to learn from Coach Newton, and ran similar offenses and things like that. But it was a great experience. I ended up coaching about 6 years, 1 year at Vanderbilt as a graduate assistant, and 5 years at Lincoln Memorial University. But I look back, and we talked to Ryan. Those experiences are what helped shape you. That helped shape me to where I'm at now. I tell you, coaching's fun. I love the coaching. I think Brant's coached a lot. I love the coaching. What I like about coaching is the daily practice. Games are fun, but I really enjoyed, and what I missed more than anything was the daily interaction with the young people, the guys. And at that point, when I was young, I was still out there playing with them, talking trash a little bit, but that was great. It was a great experience for them. But you look back, all of us are on journeys in life. But that, at a young age, I thought I knew what I was doing, but looking back, I probably didn't. So it was a great experience, and it helped shape a lot of things. But at that, when you first get out, that's a lot of years ago. That's 30 plus years ago, and you're not going to make a lot of money at a small college at that time. But I look back, some of my athletes and people I recruited, some of the things, it's kind of neat when you go back. I went back up a few years ago, and they say, "Hey, coach," or they'll text, say, "Hey, coach." It's kind of cool. And I think some of you guys have coached, you can relate that. Guys you see 10 years later, "Hey, coach, hey, coach," kind of cool. Even like when you go back to a reunion after, it's kind of neat to see. But back to I think you make a great point, but it's those things that it shapes our experiences that we have, but our journeys. I'm at the end of my career in education, but I still love going to work. But I look back on my days at Vanderbilt, and I'm thank you for bringing up my days coaching. I look at my days coaching middle school and just teaching a PE class. Those are things I enjoyed in life, and I still do. I like my interaction with kids. I have 4 lunch groups. I feed over 700 kids a day. One of my highlights, this is going to sound crazy, you're going to laugh at me, is going to lunch every day and getting to hang out with kids. That's fun for me, because a lot of times you can get caught up in leadership roles and you get away from kids and what makes the job important, and not just doing managerial like paperwork, which I'm not fond of anyway, but I like being around kids and around the adults. That's what makes it fun. But just having those experiences like coaching there, Vanderbilt, growing up in Southeast Kentucky, we all have journeys we're on. And I've just been blessed. And I'm very humbled with the fact that I had that opportunity to coach at a young age, and some really good guys. And it's fun kind of staying in touch. You just like you guys, you'll run into someone every now and then, and it's kind of great. Say, "Hey, coach, how you doing?" And I'm like, "Well, that's 30 years ago." It's kind of cool.
So, man, the kids keep you young too. Also, go ahead, Mr. Historian.
No, I was getting ready to ask him, because like you're talking about kids and things of that sort. Getting back to it, you had 2 great coaches. I got 2 questions for you. I'm gonna let Killian get the next one. You had 2 great coaches that influenced you not only in basketball but also in life. The legendary Billy Hicks,
Yes.
and then you had Sam Newton, who is, well versed. With the lessons that you've learned from these gentlemen, how did you put yourself in a position to where mentally you were able to battle with some of the SEC's best who ended up playing in the NBA that became legends later? How were you able to compete with them? And you and I spoke about, as an athlete, you got some things you do well, and you said, you had some things that you struggle with trying to play defense against Charles Barkley and Mel Turpin and those guys. What was your motivating factor, and how did they influence your competitive drive?
And that's a great question, and I'll keep it real simple. But the number one thing I look back on Billy Hicks and C.M. Newton, the one thing that stands out is that they believed in me, and that's number one. They believed in me. They saw something in me that I didn't know I had or could do. I look at Billy Hicks, who won state championships, and as Brant said, in the state of Kentucky, several state championships, and a junior high coach, and then you say, Cox, sky's the limit. And I get what he meant. That stayed true to me over the years, but he believed in me. C.M. Newton signed me at Vanderbilt without seeing me play in lifetime, just video. And he took advice out of respect for a friend that I could play. He gave me that opportunity. He believed in me. So that's the number one thing that someone gave me, but they believed in Phil Cox, believed in this little boy from Southeast Kentucky could help that team, but also it gave me an opportunity to get an education. And so I appreciate that part. But the other part is the work ethic. We had talked about work ethic. They instilled in me that you have to work. I know there's things at my size, I could not compete necessarily for 6'9", 6'10". My role was I could shoot the ball, but my thing for me that I was taught, I wasn't going to let anyone outwork me. And that means I'd stay in the gym 4, 5, 6 hours a day during the summer, shooting free throws and playing games, playing whatever I needed to do to get better. But I had the theory, and I still do. I go in at about 6:10 every morning at my current job and leave about 4:30 or 5 every day. And again, just turned 60 years old. We've got 32 years. It's that work ethic. And that's what has stayed with me over the years. And it's that you have to work hard. You have to, I'm learning that they tell Cox, they used to say, Cox, you got to work harder. You got to work smarter, not harder sometimes as you get older. It's just not as simple, but that work ethic they instilled in me that you have to do this, you have to do, and you guys have coached and played. You don't prepare for a game on Saturday morning. There's a lot of things that go into that preparation wise. Same thing in the job that I'm doing every day. There's a lot of preparation that goes into it. You just don't show up for work. Hey, let's do this, this, and this. But in sports, as we talked about, you have to do something every day to get better. You don't stay the same. And that's what Coach Newton told me. He said, Cox, you've got to do something every day, son, to move forward. And that kind of stayed with me. If you're going to be a ball player, you look in the SEC in that time. If you did not put the time in, you're probably sitting on the bench. I mean, you have to work hard. When you're playing against Charles Barkley, all these the individuals that we named, it was very talented back then. And, what's going to separate you from the other ones? And I knew I could shoot the ball. But but it became that I knew I could shoot it because I put the time in. I worked hard at it, and then these days I see kids that there's too many distractions. Social media, phones, all those things play a big role in all this. Back in my day, I was lucky to call home collect. We didn't have enough money to call home collect a car, and so things have changed. And I think it's harder for growing up these days. When I look back at my childhood, I'm blessed to have the childhood I had. But that was a great question.
Thank you. Go ahead, Killian. What you got?
He kind of touched on one of my questions when I was going to ask him about, being such a great free throw shooter, but he touched on that. But my other question was, what was going through your thought process in choosing the number 00 back in them days, man? It was kind of out there. I was like, that's a great question. I think I want to ask him.
Well, I was a freshman at James A. Kaywood High School, and I got to play most varsity games as a freshman. But when they were giving numbers out, that was the one number that was really available because all the upperclassmen got everything else. You played, so you get what's left, and that's pretty much how it started for me, and I stayed with it. And it really served me well in Vandy, back in the day, to the number, but it really helped. We all have help us make that identification or who you are a little bit. But that's how it happened. It was really the upperclassmen just got it before I got what they didn't want. And that was great. But that was back when I was going as a freshman at James A. Kaywood.
Okay. All right.
So him and Jim Otto. So look, so Jim Otto goes to the NFL Hall of Fame with 00 as a Hall of Fame center for the Raiders back in the day. Then Mr. Cox ends up being one of the greatest scorers in Vanderbilt school history with 1,742 points, right?
Yes, sir.
Yep.
Okay. Wanted to make sure 117 games, 14.8 points a game. Right?
Yes, sir.
I think they should have rounded it up to 15 or whatnot, especially the best story that I've heard from you is you talking about how y'all knocked off the Duke Blue Devils. Can't stand them still to this day, and I can't stand Coach K. I got respect for him, but I can't stand him because I got love for the North Carolina Tar Heels, ladies and gentlemen. I'm putting that out there. So, go ahead and tell that story. I think our viewers want to hear that one.
Yeah,
please.
If you ask me, one thing that probably helped identify my career at Vanderbilt was my first game. I was just happy to be on the team. I was happy to be able to go to college. I was happy to, I was go to the bookstore. You get your books. Didn't have money to buy books. That was part of the scholarship. I was just thankful. First college games at Duke. I did not start the game. I got to play a little bit. That was in Cameron Arena, where everybody jumps up and down and acts crazy. I had scored 2 points in the first half. Got going the second half, got in the game. Coach Newton put me in. We ended up winning the game in double overtime at Duke against Coach K, and I think that's the first home opener Duke had lost in 20-some years. But I ended up getting 28 points the second half, and I think I scored a total of double overtime. And I'll be honest with you, I go over at the end of the game, there's a timeout, and I can't repeat the word. And there was no plays that were drawn up for me. It was up to the upperclassmen. And I looked at Coach Newton. I said, if I get the ball, do you want me to shoot it, sir? He said, if you don't shoot that, I'll put your rear over here on the bench. We won. Exactly what I told you, son. And we won that game. And that's where my career took off. I didn't think it was a big deal because I was averaging 28, 30 in high school. I didn't think it was any different what I'd been doing. We flew back into Nashville, and then the next day, I wasn't used to having TV cameras at practice and, people interviewing you. And, I got a little bit of that. But that's how my career took off. And I still, this day, did not. It took me to several years after to realize that was pretty cool. But at the time, I didn't think nothing about it because that's what I used to do every game. But that's how I started at Duke with Coach K in double overtime. And that set it off for me. And then from that point on, I pretty much started the rest of my career and very thankful with the opportunity. Again, I can't say enough about CM Newton for me giving me the opportunity.
So, in the story, and they did the documentary for Coach Newton so it's a documentary, ladies and gentlemen, called SEC Story. They do it for many SEC legends on the SEC network, and ESPN shows it as well. They did Coach CM Newton's story. And that was one of the stories that they talked about, him going in there with a Vanderbilt team. Ladies and gentlemen, we're bringing you the Vanderbilt legend who slayed the dragon of the Duke Blue Devil. So it's a beautiful, it's just like this. Hearing you tell that story is like the Falcons knocking off those godforsaken Saints, those bagheads. Or, or listening to Alabama getting beat by anybody. Or let's get back to it. Or Duke getting knocked off by everybody. It's a miracle when that happens. Like it's like Christmas in July. Best way to describe it. Yeah. So you are a living legend, and we got to give you your flowers for that one, Coach. But I know Brant has another question for you, and so does Killian. And I'm gonna ask you one more, and we're gonna wrap it up or whatnot this evening with you.
Thank you.
All right, so I'm gonna take you back to what is the toughest environment that you played in? Two-part question. And then what was your favorite environment that you played in? It could be any level because I know how some of those Kentucky high school games were. So two-part question.
Well, I'd have to probably go back. There's several. I can go back to Clay County High School in Kentucky with Bobby Keith, the legendary Bobby Keith.
Homer Richie Farmer, too.
I
Yep.
made a shot against them from the opposing free throw line and banked it in, and we won the game. And I remember getting on the school bus, and we got rocked going out there and had to bend down.
I believe it. Manchester, Kentucky.
Yes, sir.
Explain to people what rock means. I'm sorry to cut you off, but please, because some folks don't know what that is. I've had it done to me. I got hit in the head with a rock getting on the bus. So I know.
Bus, you better stay away from that window, and you better put your head down. Put your head down, you're going to crash. Same thing on a bus. You better put your head between your legs and keep it down until you get out of Manchester. But because you just don't, that does not happen. But I go back to my college days, and there's probably two. So bear with me on this one. Tennessee was good. I remember I played in Stokely, and they throw stuff out on the floor. But the two that stood out the most, and again, was Florida. And I'll say this, Florida and LSU wasn't great either. But Florida, the fans would come out in that I think it's McConnell Center, had that plastic roof on it and all that. But they would come out in college. You go shoot a couple hours before the game. And so we went out, and the student section was right behind the bench, and they were constant. They had our media guides, and they were like, "Hey, Cox, where's DeHoyt? Where's Harlan?" They just kept on. They knew everything about you, and there's nobody in the gym with them. They're just yelling at you the whole time. But we had a guy, a redheaded guy on our team, and Coach told us not to laugh. Not Coach Newton, "Don't you do anything." But we had a redheaded boy on the team. They were calling him Opie. Danny Partridge, and just kept on and on and on about him. And I remember Coach getting mad. I thought it was funny, and Coach didn't find him in it. But that was a tough place to play because once everyone, the center field, it was just they were on top of you constantly. Then I'd go to LSU, the Bengal Tiger out front. It could be intimidating, but I remember I fouled out. I broke my finger or thumb at LSU right before I was getting ready to break the scoring record. But I fouled out. I guess I don't know how. It must have been bad officiating that night, but I did foul out. So, they were yelling at me to sit down. Then they flipped me off. I mean, it was just crazy. So I'd go Florida and LSU, but probably number one, I'd put Florida and LSU probably 1A, 1B. But I look at Florida and I go back to Clay County, Manchester, Kentucky. Those two were very challenging, from getting rocked to getting whatever done to you. But it was good. But I looked at that, and it was just that great atmosphere. As far as where I enjoyed playing, I love Memorial Coliseum. I think the fans, nearly 16,000 in every game. Vanderbilt was great, but the one place I enjoyed going to play was Rupp Arena. Again, I'm old Kentucky. Go to Rupp Arena. Yeah, you talking about the energy in that place. I liked it. The more people, the better. But I love playing because I'm a Kentucky boy. And even when I was SEC flew me down to Tampa a few years back as the legend that year from Vanderbilt. When I had to go out and do different activities with the SEC, the Kentucky crowd gave me a great applause, and I'll never forget that. They were always very kind to me, even in Rupp Arena. They would clap. It was a good reception, and so going back home a little bit, that was very special. Even though I wanted to beat them, we didn't beat them in Rupp, but I enjoyed going back because Rupp Arena it's just basketball experiences. It's just incredible because everybody in that building is really screaming against you for the most part, and it's just a great atmosphere for basketball.
Well, Gator fans are always the worst. Being a Dog fan, we got to deal with them every October. Those are the. I'm gonna say this here, and I know I'm gonna catch flack because I got family. Y'all are the worst fans out of the SEC. I will deal with a Tennessee fan or a Bama fan before I deal with a Florida Gator fan and an LSU fan. Yeah. Y'all stink, and I still stand on that to this day. Luckily, we got something that's halfway decent out of Florida with Kyle Pitts. But we still got to see what he's going to do this year before I pass my judgment. So let's keep it moving. So, Killian, what you got?
Well, I mean, just on the lighter side, but you being the superstar, the man, the myth from Vanderbilt, out of Nashville. How's it living in Knoxville in Tennessee ball country? I mean,
That's great. my son graduated from UT about a year or so ago, and my wife likes UT. Everyone around here is UT. I enjoy going to the football games. I still have a hard time with basketball, but we go.
No.
I do the best I can, but no orange hat, no orange sweatshirt. I can't go. I can't do it. I just can't do it. But you're everyone around, and they love the Vols here, and I like watching college football. Period. But someone got me an orange Titleist hat to play golf years ago, and it's never put on my head, and I just can't do it now. I buy my kids stuff. My daughter's a big Kentucky fan, and so was my youngest son. But my oldest son graduated from UT, and of all the places for him to go, I'm glad he went. but
ice skate over there.
But go to a football game, everybody's wearing orange. My wife's got the orange purse and got the boots and got the overalls. Just can't do it. Can't do it.
Don't feel bad, Coach. That's how we feel. That's how we feel about Gators on this podcast, and that's how I feel about Grambling State. I support HBCUs. Grambling State is just as disgusting to me as University of Florida. So, sorry, Coach Robinson. I respect you, but I never liked Grambling. It's all about these boys right here, them SU Jags.
I tell you this too. When I first got out of college, and my wife and we went to Thompson Bowling for a ball game. And I remember going to the bathroom, and I remember someone recognized me. They said, "There's that SOB that beat us on free." And I go back. And I said, "You don't even believe it again." But it ended up being a great conversation. So you're going to the restroom, and then have a 10-minute conversation, and it was a great conversation. But that was kind of neat. But I did not wear my Vanderbilt stuff in. I thought that probably would be smart. But the Tennessee people were always very nice. Going back and forth, and you go Tennessee football. You always enjoy the tailgating and hanging out with people. But I enjoyed playing in Stokely. I never got the opportunity to play in Thompson Bowling. But it's neat when you mentioned Tennessee, living here, my kids. It's hard. I mean, everybody's got Tennessee hats. You're going to buy a hat. Can't do it. Can't buy it. Just can't do it. Can't wear it.
Hey, I got one going back since you refreshed my memory about Stokely. What was it like playing on tartan turf?
Time they had tartan. I think maybe Alabama, Mississippi State, several schools had it. I couldn't, man, it was hard for me to jump. I could dunk the ball back in, but that made it really, really hard. The only thing I'd say over the Thompson, or not talking about Stokely, I remember one of my first games there, I made a shot or free throw to beat them. I think I beat 3 seconds left. I had a 1-1. I made both when we beat them. Then stuff comes flying on the floor. Stokely, it was more like on the end zone. It was a great atmosphere. It wasn't 10,000. It wasn't like real big. But I recall them throwing their drinks on the floor, and I'm sure it wasn't just regular Coke either. It's probably
no. It was mixed up, yeah.
But I'm used to high school, nothing like that happened. Things come flying. I'm like, wow, this is great. And I didn't realize, until we beat Tennessee and Stokely, we had flown back into Nashville. I'm a Kentucky boy. I knew Kentucky and Tennessee were rivals. I just didn't realize Tennessee and Vandy were big rivals.
Oh,
man. And we flew to Nashville. There's people waiting at the airport for us. I'm like, what? Okay, it's just, I made a couple free throws. But from that point on, I learned the significance of what it was like. Great. I mean, I'll be honest. I'll say I enjoyed that game. We beat UT, and again, I probably would have went to UT if they had offered anything. But again, it was kind of rewarding a little bit to go back and enjoy that. But I just didn't realize it was that big a rival, and I enjoyed the remaining years. And to this day, it was fun because when we played Memorial Coliseum, you might see pockets of orange who bought tickets, but it was a great atmosphere. I enjoyed those games along with playing Kentucky as well.
Right.
All right.
Okay, Doug, what you got for him? We're getting ready to wrap this thing up, buddy.
I just wanted to let them know we appreciate them coming through. I think I've got through most of the majority of my questions. And if I didn't, he probably covered it while he was answering the questions that we asked him. So Just appreciate you coming through, man. It was great to have another basketball legend on. Even though we do football, it's great to have other different sports and different genres on here because we are just sports related. But just a big thank you from the BirdCage, man.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. And
I
Phil, thank you for what you do in the community too.
Well,
I mean, thank you.
I got one last question for you, Mr. Cox, and then I'm gonna wrap it up. Is like I said, I got to put the benediction on it, like we say in church. But for me, this is a big thing because I spoke to you about what my situation was in high school, and truthfully, having a head coach that just wasn't that great. You know, great at winning games, but really wasn't looking out for the young folks. With your life as an educator, once you were done playing basketball, the lessons that you've learned from Coach Newton and then also Coach Hicks, and then being in a situation of coming out of a tough town, you know, that was bloody Harlan is what they would say, you know, coal mining town, just having those values of working your way out of that to getting a college education to be able to inspire kids to get to the level of achieving anything that they set their mind to if they put the work in. What is it that you really take from not just shaping young minds, but being able to invest yourself into them as well as their future and seeing these kids once they're living their lives? What do you take from that?
Well, that's a great question there. I mean, to me, the first thing that comes to my mind is that we talked about our journeys. It's about giving back for me right now. Investing in our youth, investing in these kids that coming from various situations, whether they're living with a parent or grandparent or been taken and out of the home. There's a lot of situations that we deal with these days, and I can't get into great detail, that they had a lot of things happen to the kids in their life that it was beyond their control. And what we try to do and what I try to do is with my staff is do everything we can do to let kids, they come to school sometimes just to be loved and to care about them, to help them and help them get to where they know they can not only be fed, but they have a secure, safe environment. I look at how I grew up coming out of bloody Harlan. I feel blessed that, you know, had the opportunity to even go to college. I look back and I'm very blessed. But I look at where I'm at now. I think we all have a responsibility to give back in our communities. I do believe in that. We all give back in different ways. But I see more kids these days coming with different variables and different things that just was beyond their control that just break your heart each and every day. And what we try to do and what I try to do is what we can do to help them be successful, giving them that foundation that they just don't have, and to give them a chance in life. And it's not about the kids that make straight A's or B's, all that. It's about all kids and what we can do to help all kids. And what I want to do is I want kids to know we have people that care about them, love them, that believe in them, and we want to help make a difference in their life. That's what I do. And to me personally, it's about giving back and having that servant attitude and helping them be successful in life. Like I said, I have over 700 kids, and they come from all ages and different things and different situations at home. And that's what I like trying to do, is give a little bit back because someone believed in me. I had several people believe in me and gave me the opportunity, and I want to believe in our kids and what we can do to help them. So, and guys, I appreciate your time. Allow me to share my story a little bit tonight too.
So we definitely thank you for coming on. I'm gonna have something in the mail for you next week. This lovely poster that's behind you, this will be coming towards you. Just to say thank you for coming on to the show. And we definitely appreciate the stories and really just you really being able to influence young people, and you drop some gems for us tonight, you know, for us to apply to be able to go back into our homes, communities, just to be able to help make things a little bit better. So we definitely thank you and appreciate you here in the BirdCage for joining us tonight.
Been a pleasure, gentlemen. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Phil. Appreciate you.
So that was the legendary Phil Cox that joined us tonight. What's going to happen tomorrow? We're going to have the Falcons on TV tomorrow playing the Pittsburgh Steelers tomorrow night. So what we're going to be doing halftime analysis, as always, and then after the game, we plan on having a party line tomorrow. We don't plan on having a learning experience. It ain't the benediction yet. It's the learning experience because we're still in the preseason. But we plan on having a party line tonight to talk about how the Falcons just went on ahead and dominated.
Right.
So I look forward to working with folks in the BirdCage, and I look forward to being with you guys, our fans, because without y'all, we wouldn't be here at all. So we're very grateful for that. I want to thank Glenn Graybeard for coming through, helping us with those Dirty Bird topics earlier. My right-hand man, Killian K-Dub Worthy, coming in, being clutch as usual with the SEC shirt, baby. Them dogs, we getting that three-peat this year.
No.
I'm calling it now. Shout out to Coach Brent for hooking us up with this incredible interview that we've had with Mr. Phil Cox. Definitely appreciate you being able to get him to spend a little time with us, and we definitely look forward to some future interviews that we have coming up. And what we're going to be trying to do this season, we're going to try to have the interview process for you guys on Wednesdays, and then we're going to try to continue doing the Falcons information and updates from us on Thursdays. So we definitely appreciate you guys being patient with us. This is getting ready to start year number 2 for us, being on YouTube. And well, we haven't been on YouTube for a year yet, but we've been on Facebook for 2 years. But this is getting ready to come up to maybe a year in January. But I'll see you guys tomorrow, and thank you for coming on. If you have somebody you love, hug them, tell them, hey, no matter what's going on, hug them, tell them you love them, because tomorrow's not promised. Like my hat says, rare roses beat the odds. And Phil Cox was a rare rose that beat the odds from coming out of Harlan, Kentucky, which, is a miner's town and small town. He did his thing. So if anything, hopefully this story inspires you to continue to keep going, even if your situations might be bleak, because no matter what happens, you have the choice to make things better in your life. You have to put in that work. You have to put in that effort to make things better. And this is not just a message for you guys. I'm taking it in myself because I'm working on some things with myself to make myself better. So you're not in this alone. So we got love for you, and we thank you for coming on to the show tonight. And can't wait to see you guys tomorrow. And hopefully these birds end up winning the championship this year. But we'll find out soon enough. So I'm the historian, Ryan Walker. I will see you tomorrow night. You guys have a good one. Peace.